Welcome to the Mindful Muscle Podcast. My name is Paul Klingon, and I am your host. I left a career at Amazon in 2018 to help people live healthier lives. Mindful Muscle is the balance between pushing harder to hit your fitness goals while also being able to slow down. We'll talk all things training, nutrition, and recovery, while also highlighting the importance of mindfulness, slowing down, and taking care of mental health and performance. You'll hear from doctors, authors, athletes, coaches, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in the health and wellness space. And you'll hear from me as an athlete, trainer, nutrition, and personal performance coach as I share my thoughts and experiences that are helping my clients and myself get better each and every day. What is up, everyone, and welcome to the Mindful Muscle Podcast, Competitor's Guide to Mental Health and Mastery. So we've got an awesome guest today. I'm going to get right into him in the introduction. We got Chaz Spackman. Chaz is someone that I've met through different people that I've had on the podcast, Jeremiah Bear, Cody McBroom, and he is a training and fitness nutrition coach. Online runs a business, Lost and Lifting, and we talk about a lot of cool things. One, how Lost and Lifting started. It's a really cool story. Then you've got common mistakes that he sees clients making all the time, mistakes that he made, why motivation is not something you can rely on. And if you saw my post on tax day, right, we are not motivated to work. We are not motivated to pay taxes, but we still got to get it done, right? Because our life depends on it. So he dives into that concept a ton. He's also got over 120,000 followers on TikTok. And so we spend a lot of time talking about TikTok, the value that it has for coaches, the value that it can bring in educating people and getting people really good information really quickly. And, you know, we're not dancing on it, but we talk about how we can use it in a smart and strategic way. And then last and not least, we dive into some really fun personality questions. So really awesome guy, really smart, really motivating, and super excited to connect with him and for you guys to listen to this episode. So here we go, Chaz Spackman. Chaz, welcome to the show. Super excited to be able to connect with you on the podcast.
So am I, Paul. Just like I said, man, I'm super excited to be here. I appreciate you for asking me to come on. I've been looking forward to the chat all week. So thank you, man. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. So we connected through different people in the industry. And I was like, oh man, Lost and Lifting. I've been seeing this on social media a bunch. And then once we connected through this group, I was like, oh, okay, I got to talk to this guy. I got to get to know. And so for the listeners and for me partially, what is Lost and Lifting? How did that come? And what was the inspiration behind it?
Sure. That's a good question. Lost and Lifting, actually, we started around 7 years ago or so at this point. So it's been a really long time. When we started the company, it wasn't really what it's evolved into today. At the time, my girlfriend, who's my wife now, we came up with an idea when we were in Costa Rica. Like we were trying to figure out, we had jobs. We didn't really love the jobs that we did, right? So both into fitness, really enjoy it. It was part of our passions. But we were in Costa Rica on a vacation trying to think about, I've always been like a big ideas type of person, right? Like entrepreneurial mind, was working the regular 9-to-5 jobs, just thinking like, man, how can I do something that I really want to do, like, and get me out of that 9-to-5, not live as traditional of a life, right? And what ended up happening was we came up with the name Lost and Lifting there, but the idea behind it was to start a blog of us traveling because we both love to travel, and then show people how to be fit while traveling, essentially, and write a blog about it. We didn't think about it a lot, but like we started thinking about it, like, oh, cool, like that's a really good idea because we were on a vacation at the time. So it was kind of like on a whim thing, like this would be a really cool idea. So we started it that way and started the website and started writing blogs about traveling and like going to different places that we like to go to. Like we've been to Thailand, we've been to Costa Rica, we've been to Mexico. We like to travel all over the place. And so we started writing about that kind of stuff for the first little while. And then as that started to happen, I started just to see more people doing online coaching online, right? And I'd always kind of liked the idea of training, and obviously like getting into the blogging space for traveling is really, really hard. And it wasn't something we realized how much work was actually going to take. And wasn't something that we loved enough or realized that, okay, maybe we don't travel enough to actually make a blog about traveling, right? Because we're both stuck at home with 9-to-5 jobs. And so that's when probably like 2-3 years into it, we started diving more into the online coaching side of things, getting certified, doing all that kind of stuff, and started working with a few people. And at the same time, I decided that I was going to open up a gym. This was back in 2016. So essentially about 5 years ago. So doing Lost and Lifting, I'm dating Clara, who's my wife today, and we open up a gym, and I'm still running my 9-to-5 job all at the exact same time. And so as we're doing all of this, Clara ends up getting pregnant. And so now I have a girlfriend who's pregnant, 9 to 5, lost and lifting, the gym, something has to give. Right. And so we actually put lost and lifting on the back burners at that time. I stopped taking online clients. It really wasn't making that much anyway. I was probably working with like a handful of people. So it wasn't that serious. So I stuck with the 9 to 5 job. Me and my wife ended up getting married, and then I was running the gym at the same time. Right. And so at this point, like a year into it, I just started to realize like, man, the gym is cool. I'm still working this 9 to 5 job. I don't really want to be doing it. And I miss lost and lifting. I miss posting content. I miss helping people and growing my reach there. And so what ended up happening, I just came to my wife one night and was like, I'm going to be a full-time online coach. What do you think about that? And of course she's like, yeah, whatever. Like, you're full of crap. How is this going to work? And so that was back in 2017. And that's when I really just decided to go all in on it. And fast forward, long story short, 2021 today, took me a couple of years to really build it out. But at the end of 2019 is when I was able to take lost and lifting full time. I was able to sell the gym. I got I quit the 9 to 5 job back in 2018, was running the gym, lost and lifting, got to the point where lost and lifting was successful enough that I could sell the gym, go all in on lost and lifting. We moved from our hometown down to Southern Utah. And that's where we are today, is where I'm running this full time. I know that's kind of all over the place, but that's kind of like the whole story of where it came about.
It's really cool. There's so many threads to pick into that. And I'm just like blown away because I have friends who are now having babies and seeing how much work that is. And then I have people that I know that own gyms, and I know how much work that is. Then you have like, obviously like a wife and all these other things on top of it. I'm like, man, your capacity to get
There's a
stuff
lot.
done. Oh, this guy is a savage. So dial it back just a little bit. What were you doing before? Like, what was this 9 to 5? Was it anything related? Like, was it marketing? Was it sales?
No,
anything related?
not at all, man. So my family owns gas stations back in my hometown. We don't own any of them anymore. Actually, they ended up selling all of them. But my family owned a group of gas stations. So we had about 6 gas stations, a couple restaurants, and a couple different things. My grandpa was the head of it. He was the entrepreneur of the family, right? And the thing within our family, like the common theme was everybody would work in the business and help grow the family business over time. And it was great. And I learned a lot about entrepreneurship and a lot about like taking self-responsibility. Do you know what I mean? But I didn't really learn anything about marketing, anything about running a team or anything like that. I just learned like the true grit of being an entrepreneur because I'd watched my grandpa for so many years grind it out and actually do it, if that makes sense. And so it was such a different transition to like own a gym, to do the online stuff, because the marketing side of it is so big. Right. But no, I was literally helping manage gas. I started out managing one gas station to where first I was serving, waitering in the restaurant that was hooked to the gas station. Then I started managing the restaurant. Then I started working in the gas station and doing like the cashier work. Then I ended up being the manager who ran the employees, the cash register people, and then ended up helping run like all 6 companies, all 6 stores, kind of like headed that with somebody else who was my cousin. And then from there, that's when I ended up quitting back in 2019. After we got through all that, I was like, I love this. I've learned a lot and the gym's doing okay, but it's time for me to spread my wings. Because like, I got to do something for myself. I can't just be stuck in this 9 to 5 spirit. It drained me, if that makes sense.
100%. What was the hometown?
Preston. So Preston, Idaho, in Franklin County. It's right on the Idaho-Utah border, like southeastern Idaho, northeastern Utah.
Okay. I'm in Washington, so it's kind of close. I've heard of Preston.
Sure. Yeah.
So then you love traveling. I love traveling too. That's actually something that my girlfriend and I really connect on. And obviously when you have a 9 to 5, it's really hard to travel.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What do you love about traveling? Because I find that traveling is a really good way to get perspective. Mm-hmm. And so like for you, what do you really enjoy about it?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing for me too. It's just like seeing, whenever I travel, it helps me realize how insignificant I actually am. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, like when you're home and you're in your regular routine and you see the same people every single day and like you're doing the same thing every single day, I feel like you start to think that you're a lot more important than you actually are. Like you're the only thing that truly matters. And then when you get out and you travel to these different cultures and see how all these different people are living, like you start to realize that your little situation is really insignificant, and it helps give you just a bigger perspective on life, in my opinion. Like I always come back so refreshed. Like there's so much more opportunity in the world, and I like keep myself so confined to what I do that like I forget the bigger picture and the bigger perspective of life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's bigger places, more people, bigger problems, and we can kind of think that we are the center of the universe. In
Yeah.
reality, it's like we're not. There's so
Yeah.
many other things going on. But it also helps to flip the switch where it's like, oh, there's only like 10 people that want to be clients. It's like, no, there's a lot of people that you could
Yeah.
potentially like help and work with, which is cool. So then you have the gym and you're doing the online coaching piece. What was kind of the catalyst for you being like, all right, I know you said like you could sell the gym that Boston Lifting was doing well, but was the gym something that you enjoyed? Like what did you learn when you were building out that?
Yeah, the gym was always like the long-term goal or dream job for me to have. Like I remember being 21, 22 years old and being like, man, how cool would it be to be able to own my own gym, right? Like that's like a dream thing that I didn't think could ever happen. And when I turned around 24, 25, I believe is when I opened it. I was in a community that needed it first and foremost. Like we had an old gym there that I trained out for years. We didn't like no updated equipment, nothing like that. So the opportunity kind of just worked out to where there wasn't a gym in town that fulfilled the needs that I had, and I knew there was enough people there that could potentially support it. So I just kind of went all in and decided I'm just going to try to make this thing work. Went to the bank and talked through all of that. Obviously, had to save up money and get that started, and it was all great. But what I quickly realized is that I love to train and I love to work out and I love to use the gym as an escape, right? When the gym now becomes your responsibility to keep the lights on, it's not necessarily your escape anymore. It's more of your responsibility. You know what I mean? Like all of the pressure falls back on you. You go looking at every little thing like, oh, that's out of place, or oh, that's dirty, or oh, that's broken. It's all put on you at the end of the day. And there's nothing wrong with that. I learned a ton from that. I wouldn't be where I'm at today with Lost and Lifting if I wouldn't have gone through the gym experience first. But I just got to the point to where it's not that I resented it. It just wasn't what I thought that it would be. And I talk with a lot of gym owners, and I think that a lot of people end up getting into that same situation. Like you're so passionate about going to the gym and it's kind of your escape and your release from the rest of your life. And then you open up your own, and then it just kind of becomes your new normal to where you're in the gym all day. It's no longer your escape.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And so that's really what ended up happening for me, man. And that's why I just got to the point to where like when we went all in on Lost and Lifting and that was going really well, I could just feel that, not anxiety, but I missed the gym just being the gym, if that makes sense. And so it just made sense in my situation to get to the point to where I was like, okay, it's time to move on to this next endeavor. Because with Lost and Lifting and coaching people, that's a different situation. Like I still have the escape of fitness for myself, if that makes sense, but I can also help people go through that same experience for themselves and grow and learn and get better. But when you're actually owning a brick and mortar facility, it's just more stressful. And it's a different situation in my experience. That's at least how I felt about it.
Yeah, no, I 100% can understand that. Even just travel, you're talking about that, where it's like when traveling is your job, it no longer is as fun. If you had to be
100%.
writing blogs, you're taking pictures, it's like you can no longer just enjoy the picture of the monkey. You got to film the monkey and then edit the picture, the video of the monkey.
100%.
You're in Thailand. And then same thing kind of happens to the gym. I remember that happening to me. I was working on a golf course and I really liked golfing, but
Same.
then I would be there from 6 to noon. And they're like, you can play golf for free. And I'm like, this is the last place I want to be, even though it's a really nice golf course and I can get in a free round, which now is like way too expensive. But I was just like, I want nothing to do with it. And so I ended up not using it, but it's just like you lose that escape. So totally
Exactly.
understand that. So now we'll fast forward to what you're doing with clients now. So people work with you, training, nutrition, obviously a lot of mindset and everything that gets wrapped up into actually making that change, not just physically, but also with their life. The people that come to you, what are some of the initial things that you find is kind of a common, either the mistake they're making or the first thing to really address so that they can be successful in the long term working with you, but also in life?
Yeah, that's a really good question, man. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can go with this. But first off, I think too many people are, and some of this is our problem as coaches and content creators, in my opinion, is that people are so focused on the science of training and nutrition that they forget how hard it's going to be and how you have to develop as a person emotionally, spiritually, mentally to be able to put in the work on the science side of things that's actually going to allow the science to work, if that makes sense. And I feel like people come into it with wrong expectations. They think that progress should be quicker than it is. They don't realize that it's going to be really hard. They don't realize that it's going to be probably take longer than they want it to. They don't realize that they're going to lose motivation along the way. And they don't realize that there's going to be times where they even contemplate quitting. And so whenever I bring somebody in to work with them, before we talk macros, before we talk training programs, before we talk anything about that, we start setting expectations about what this is truly going to look like. And if you can't accept these hard truths, these shitty truths before we begin, well, then you're not, the calories, the workout programs, anything I prescribe for you isn't going to work. And so that's why I always talk about, and I have a tagline that I'll use sometimes that I just say, one mental, two physical, meaning until you start to work on yourself mentally, don't expect anything to change physically. And it can change in the short term, right? You can go run like a juice cleanse or a keto diet for 30 to 60 days and you can see really good results. Absolutely. But if you're not doing it with something that's sustainable and long lasting, something you can see yourself doing a year from now, then that's not going to work out. And so looking at it from both spectrums, okay, we have to put something in that's going to be sustainable first off. That means that progress might be a little bit slower. That means that you're still going to deal with all of these hardships, right? In terms of setting the correct expectations for yourself. But if you can accept that before you begin, now when you run into it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road, you're in a position to be able to actually handle it because you expect it coming so that you can better manage it because you're aware of it before it even happens. And if you're going down the journey and then it slaps you in the face and you have a coach or somebody telling you like, oh yeah, this is easy, it's going to be fast, you're going to be good, like you're going to be motivated the whole time, and they lead you on with that expectation, and then this stuff happens and it starts to get hard and you didn't expect it, that's when you run because you didn't expect it, right? It's like, well, this isn't what I signed up for. And so then you run the other way and don't ultimately end up getting to where you want to be. So long-winded answer, I would say definitely expectations and making sure that people actually know what they're signing themselves up for. Because like the truth of the matter is fitness is hard. Changing your body composition is hard until you accept that before you begin. And it's going to take probably a lot more dedication than you think it's going to, right? You get a lot of people who've been like, oh, I'm tracking my macros. Oh, I'm working out every single week. But when you truly look at it, maybe they're consistent 4 out of 7 days of the week. Right. And you get to a point where you have to realize, okay, it's going to take a better effort than that. Doesn't mean that you have to be 100% perfect 100% of the time, because that's going to lead to burnout and over restriction, right? To where you're going to end up resenting what you're doing. But if you're not realistic about the understanding, it's going to take me being at least 85 to 95% consistent 100% of the time, then you're never going to truly be able to get to where you want to be, because you're not going to put enough good days on the record to actually move that needle forward.
Yeah, when you said setting expectations at the beginning and then slap you in the face, it reminded me of my first time surfing, and I really wish the instructor would have set expectations where it's like, you're not going to get up, you're going to get beat up by the ocean, and it's going to be really hard. Eventually you'll get there, but you really stick with it.
And if it, like, just to add on to that, like if you understand that it's going to suck before you start and you know what you're getting yourself into, you're going to have such a better attitude towards it to be able to better manage it. Right. And like, I feel like that's where most people fall short. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good point where it's like, hey, there's going to come a time, we don't know when, but you're going to want to quit. If you can anticipate that that's going to happen and then visualize how you go and respond to that, now you have a plan, a contingency plan for when, things deviate. But if you just plan on everything going perfect the entire time, nothing goes perfect the entire time. And I've thought about this a lot recently, just for random reasons, but I think people think that coaching, training, nutrition, all this stuff is transactional, in that I go to the car shop and I need a new muffler. I get a new muffler. Like I'm good. I'm done. Right. That's a service, right? We do a service, but people think like, oh, I'm going to go and buy all this science and technology and it's just going to get downloaded to me like an iPhone. And it's like, no, like we're going to give you everything, but then you have to do the work instead of us doing all the research and development and building all this technology and then handing it off to you. And I think if people understood that just having a gym membership or just having a coach or just tracking does not make anything happen, unless, to your point, it's 95%, it's super consistent and you're following through with it for a long period of time. Even if you're just doing 6 out of 7 days tracking, great. That's not consistent, unfortunately.
No, I think that's a good point. I've never heard it framed that way, but that's a really good way to put it. Like you can go buy an iPhone, pay the money for it, have it handed to you, and you get all the benefit of that iPhone, right? It's right there in your hands and you literally have the world at your fingertips. When it comes to training nutrition, you can have the perfect plan in the world, but if you don't have the right expectations going into that plan and realizing that it's on you to execute, to create the result you want from the plan, like you're setting yourself up for ultimately a big waste of money. Right. And so like, that's a good point. Whenever we work with somebody, whenever we bring in somebody into loss and lifting, that's the conversation we're having before them agreeing. And then if they agree to that, we know that they're going to be a really good fit for what it is that we do, because they're ready to make that. It sounds cliche, but they're ready to make that lifestyle change, right? They're
Yep.
ready to go through the hard shit to finally get to where they want to be in anything in life. You know this, running business, changing your body composition, any big goal you have for yourself, it's going to be hard to get there. That's what makes it so rewarding. If it didn't suck in the process and you had to grow and develop to become the person that could achieve the thing you wanted to achieve, it wouldn't be as sweet when you actually get there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I I think the other point to that too is that when you have to do all the work, but then you get all the benefit, you're paying potentially pennies on what could change your life. And so people might think it's like very a dichotomy. Like some people think they waste their money. Some people come out of coaching, with you or with me, and they're like, huh, that sucker, like you only charged me that much. And now I've
Yeah.
lost like 60 pounds and my life is completely changed. And it's like, wow, that's kind of a steal. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's that value spectrum can be so variable. You touched on something that was super interesting, right? Keto detoxes, things are kind of quick fixes because you do such a good job with content, science-based education, and kind of setting expectations almost through your messaging. Do you find that that's something that people come to you wanting to do, or do they understand beforehand that that doesn't work?
Yeah, that's the benefit of content-based marketing, right? Is that like through TikTok, through Instagram, through the podcast, whatever medium that it is, like the people generally that come in to work with us are generally in a position to where they've already tried all of that stuff, right? And now they're at a point like, okay, I'm ready to submit and like take this seriously and quit looking for the hack or the quick fix or whatever it may be, because I've tried those things and it hasn't worked, right? Like the good coaches, the evidence-based coaches are usually like the last resort for people because they've gone through the spectrum of dealing with all of that other stuff. Every once in a while, like somebody's not very up to date with my content or hasn't looked a lot of it and is just looking for a random coach out of nowhere, and they come across my stuff on a social media platform, that potentially can come up, but I would say 99.9% of the time, like people have already tried all of that and realized what it is, and then are like, okay, like I've got to go at this from more of a realistic expectation and like a more just realistic approach. So I'm going to be able to sustain long term because they've already yo-yo dieted. They've already tried like the 30-day challenges or the juice cleanses or whatever it is, and kind of come to that realization. And hence that's where we'll step in and start helping them build out those right expectations and following things from more of a tailored or sustainable approach to where their specific lifestyle is at. That's what we always talk about. Like we're not going to, when we work with you, we're not going to take you and force you to fit into like our template. What we're going to do, we're going to take all of your considerations or all your whole lifestyle into consideration. And then we're going to build something that fits into where your life is already at. It doesn't mean it's not going to come with some inconveniences or some things that you're going to have to sacrifice, but our main priority is to make sure that we're building out for you something that's going to fit in the life that you enjoy to live, so that it's something that looks realistic for you to be doing 12 months down the road.
Yeah, and that content-based marketing is so helpful. It's almost like the difference between an indoctrinated lead and an indoctrinated lead, or someone who's just like there's warm and hot, but there's also people who are like kind of following the program already mentally and they're bought
Yeah.
in, and that makes it a lot easier.
That's the best thing in the world. Like when I'll get on a phone call with somebody and we'll start talking and I'll be like, how long you been following along? And they'll be like, oh, 1, 2, 3 years. It's like, okay, you know what this is about. Like you're just finally taking the step to step in and start doing it. You know what I mean? Like they're truly ready because they've been warming themselves up to understand what they're about to get themselves into. It's the people that, like I said, haven't been following for that long and are brand new to content and just dive right in. Like I'm more than willing to help them, but I understand that there's a lot of those barriers that we're going to have to break down right off the top, opposed to somebody who's been following along to the content for a decent amount of time.
Yeah. So you've mentioned TikTok a couple times now, and I know that you're big on the TikTok game. How have you found that to be either fun, beneficial? Well, every time I go on it is just a big waste of time, but obviously like that's where so many people are.
Yeah.
Like what are
Yeah.
ways that you're winning on TikTok and not getting sucked in, for lack
Yeah,
of a better term?
dude, it's like everybody So like in the mentorship and everything that I've done and all the coaches that I talked to and a few of the coaches that I mentor myself and whatnot, you bring up TikTok and they're like, TikTok, what are you doing on TikTok? But like, I can honestly say the biggest shift in my business and the biggest growth in my business has come since I started TikTok roughly 18 months ago in the middle of 2019, roughly, when it was still kind of new, but not a whole lot of like trainers, nutrition coaches were really on there, like spitting out evidence-based content and things like that. And so I tried to really just take the content that I was already producing for years on Instagram and just flip it onto TikTok, and say it in that same sort of a way. I literally will take a lot of my Instagram type posts and messages and just turn them into a TikTok. And when I first started using the app, I would just literally just get on and just record myself. I wouldn't try to make it fancy, any fancy words, anything like that. I'd literally just take a video, and I sucked at it because I wasn't very comfortable with it. And I think that's why so many coaches have resistance towards it, because it's easy to hide behind a Twitter post or writing out a caption, right? When you've got to put your face on and you've got to like convey a message, and you don't get a lot of engagement from that up front, like it's just another level of putting yourself out there, so to speak, compared to writing something out, compared to putting your face on it. You know what I mean? And so I think that's the biggest barrier. But I just decided, like, I saw TikTok going, and honestly, I saw Gary Vee pushing it, saying, do this, do this, do this. And not a whole lot of people were responding to it. I was like, I listened to a lot of his content for a long time. So I was like, I'm just going to give this thing a shot. Started posting 10 posts in, gained a decent amount of followers, and was getting good engagement on the videos already. I was like, man, there's something here. Like, I've been posting on Instagram for years and not getting near the engagement I'm getting on TikTok. And I've been on here for a month, so to speak. You know what I mean? And so it's just that difference. Like Instagram, if you got in the early stages of Instagram, when they were pushing your posts out and the algorithm was a lot more flexible, that's where people grew. Like, you don't see people getting on Instagram today and growing a big following because they've suppressed the algorithm so much, right? Because of all the advertising dollars that come in. On TikTok, it's still in that very new stage to where they're wanting people on the platform and they're wanting creators. And so they're much more flexible with pushing your stuff out there. There's a lot more organic engagement. And so I was literally on there posting 5 times a day. Like, I was like living my life posting TikToks every single day, just trying to get my message out there. And it paid off in the long run, right? I'm not posting as much on there now, but it was the biggest change in my business. Like, I remember everybody kind of not making fun of me, but like small jokes, like, oh, there's just kids on there. Oh, it's just dancing. And like, I remember my first person on there was a lady from New York. She worked for Levi's, the company Levi's. She applied, she booked a call, and I got on with her and asked where she found me. She said, from TikTok. It's like, oh, this is weird. She's like a established lady, right? Like 40 years old, works for Levi's, and she found me through TikTok. And I was like, there's something here. And that's when I doubled down on it. And it's been really good, man. I enjoy it too. I like that form of content, honestly, better than writing. So I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've done some things on TikTok and I enjoy it too. Right now, I just feel super fragmented and want to get back to it in the future. I actually posted and this is my first mistake. Initially, I was just like kind of messing around with it during quarantine, and we had gotten a kitten. So I was like, oh, here's some like funny kitten videos. 10 videos in, she like blows up, and one goes like 1.5 million views.
Oh, dang.
Like,
That's awesome.
Thousands of comments, thousands of likes. So I have like not a ton, but just like 6,000 followers, but they're all cat ladies,
Sure.
and like cat people. And so then I'll go post some fitness stuff, and they're just like, this isn't a cat.
Yeah.
But obviously, you just change the message, and those people go, the other people come back in. But I think you made a really good point. TikTok, more than any other platform, is really personal. You have to be dancing. That's you showing your, some emotion.
I never did the dances though.
Well, not the dancing,
Couldn't do the dances.
what I'm getting at is like dancing, public speaking.
Yeah.
Those are all things that terrify people. And now here's something that's forcing people to get vulnerable, where you're literally in their bedroom, in their living room, like they're just talking, right? And that is something that some of the other platforms don't have.
That's what's been really cool about that too, not to cut you off, but when you're posting videos compared to writing Instagram captions, somebody, like, for the coaches out there, a lead can get to know you a lot faster through video than they can through written content. Like, you think about your Instagram posts, somebody finds your Instagram, are they going to go look through all of your Instagram posts and read your deep captions? Do you know how much brain power that takes? But what somebody can do with me on TikTok is they can find me, and then like they like a video, they go to my profile. I've got thousands of videos breaking down my philosophies on training and nutrition. It's so much easier to sit there and watch me and my personality give you helpful information that you can digest a lot quicker than reading it, and just sit there and watch me for like 30 minutes or 60 minutes, compared to somebody's not going to do that on your Instagram page. It's going to take a lot more brain power, or it's going to take a special type of person to do that. And so what I found is I'm able to warm people up to my philosophies and ideas much faster through TikTok than I am through Instagram, if that makes sense. Like people that end up working with us through Instagram, typically they've been following along for like a 3 to 12 month period. People on TikTok, it's more like some people are a week up to a month, and then they're on board, but they already understand the philosophies and understand what they're getting into because they've digested everything. Like they've literally watched me in terms of like almost like watching a TV show. And like when I get on the phone with them, they understand how I talk, they understand how I communicate, they understand my personality, my quirks, all that kind of stuff. So like they already understand who I am. That's the piece on Instagram that's missing, if that makes sense. And that's why I like that platform so much more. And like full transparency, I hate public speaking. I hate putting myself out there on a video. Like it's humiliating. I'm much more of an introvert, like a little bit of social anxiety. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's not who I am. But for a long time before TikTok came out, I always knew that I wanted to be able to be comfortable on video. And so like I would drive to work. I lived about 30 minutes away from my 9 to 5 job working at the gas stations. And so every single day when I drive to work and drive home, I'd literally just turn on my camera and I would sit there and try to talk to the camera. Like whatever I was saying, it was always stupid shit that would come out of my mouth, but like just trying to get a little bit more comfortable on camera. I did that for literally for years. And then when TikTok popped up, it was like, oh, all that time that I was sitting there doing this, like I'm semi-comfortable putting myself on camera now. Now it's just time to actually start posting it, if that makes sense. And so like, it just worked out for me.
Yeah. And I think there's still a lot of room for TikTok to run.
So much.
To your point as well, you can literally watch a TV episode of someone. You watch 20 videos a minute long. That's a TV episode. Mm-hmm. And then take someone to get hooked on a TV show, the pilot, take someone to get hooked on you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And what's cool is they're not clicking on, like when you're scrolling through the feed of Instagram, you don't know what had a ton of engagement. You don't know what did well. You're kind of just looking like visually like what's appealing. Yeah. Versus TikTok is like, hey, this was a hit. Click on this because it shows you the views.
Yep. Right? Exactly.
Now this is like, now we're
and
thinking.
Their algorithm too is interesting, and it helps content creators and like brands, because when somebody follows you on TikTok and there's like the For You page and then there's the following side where you can swipe through people that you follow. When you follow a new person, you've digested some of their content, you've engaged with it. On the following side of it, it shows all of your best videos right up front. Like it doesn't go in order with the people that you're following, right? Like the videos, it just starts popping up any video that they've just engaged with from that follower for like the first 5 or 6. And so then they get really warmed up to you really quick because they start seeing more and more of your stuff like thrown right in their face. And if they mess with it and it hits home with them, like you've just won.
Yeah, definitely. And when people say, like, it was funny, you're saying the lady from Levi's 40 years old, or people always say like, oh, they're not on TikTok, they're not on Facebook, they're not on this, they're not on that. And it's like, have you looked at the data at any point? People spend hours on all of these platforms. It's just using these platforms well. Even Facebook, people say it's dead. It's not dead. It's just not as fun. But I think we'd all be surprised if we looked at like the data of ourselves or people that we know. We're like, you're actually on Facebook like 2 hours a day. We just don't even realize it. It's just so part of our natural day to day.
Yeah, I would say just like if you're newer to coaching and you want to build a following and you're trying to build a brand, like you have to go to the places where organic engagement is the highest. Like you're not going to build a big brand on Instagram or Facebook right now unless you're willing to pay a lot of dollars in advertising money, right? Like that's just the reality of the situation. You don't see new people getting on Instagram and blowing up, and they collaborate really well with others, which you can obviously do it that way. But like if you're trying to build a big brand and be able to work with people from essentially all over the world, like we are, going to those organic places is best. Like Facebook, Instagram, you're generally going to get on there and you're going to see a lot of people that you already know, a lot of friends, a lot of people that you're already familiar with, and you can start working with them, which is great. Like you've got to find those places to where's the opportunity to where I can have post things that make sense with my brand and that are going to blow up to see hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people, right? That's how you're going to get that reach. And the only place to do that right now is on TikTok. So if you're not on there and you're newer and you're just trying to get started and build up a clientele, like again, with my mentor clients, the people that I work with, and just like even my training nutrition clients who are coaches as well, my number one thing to them, and people get mad at me because I say this, especially the people that are on that platform, but it's really that's the platform that you should be going to start building your brand. And if I've seen anything as I've got on there, it's done nothing but help my Instagram grow. Like I don't post on Instagram near as much, but all the TikTok people follow along now come over and follow my Instagram, and it's grown way more, and I post way less. So that's my 2 cents.
And I've seen your wife too. She's got a really good aesthetic job on social media. Is she on TikTok as well? Or are you guys like sharing information?
So she's on TikTok. I just talked her on to finally getting on TikTok. She does a lot of like the reels and stuff on Instagram. She's always just, that's the thing, is people are so stuck on Instagram, right? Like people, like Instagram is what we've all known in our generation growing up. And so it's super understandable, like to go into this new thing. And so she wasn't super bought into it until I got her posting some of her reels on TikTok as well. And some of those started to pop off, and she's like, oh, like there really is something to this. So she's over there now as well, but she does a great job with reels. She's more like lifestyle. So she works with like lifestyle brands. She's like what you could, I guess, call quote unquote an influencer in a way, to where she gets paid by brands to have them promote their products through her page, if that makes sense. And so like she's using a little bit of TikTok as well, but she does a lot on Instagram.
Yeah. Social media powerhouse, you guys.
I hated social media. Like when me and her started dating, like I hated social media. I thought it was dumb. I was like, I'm not going to put myself out there. Why would I share my story or my life online? Like, I just want to live my life. I don't need to worry about, like, it almost feels like you're getting validated. You need validation from others just to put your stuff out there for no reason. But then you start to realize as you get into business, like this is the best way to capture people's attention and to be able to grow something of your dreams that you want instead of working that 9 to 5. And when I started to realize that, I started to look at it from a much different light.
Yeah, definitely. Want to pull back just a little bit on you again. You said 7 years now you've been doing loss and lifting. At what point, what age were you when you personally got into fitness and started looking at nutrition and things to change your body composition and whatever goals that you have?
Yeah. So I was huge into sports through high school: basketball, baseball, football, golf, all that kind of stuff. I did a little bit of track. I come from a small high school. So if you had some athleticism, you literally were like expected to play everything. Right. And so out of high school, I had big dreams to go out and play college basketball. And so I came down to, actually in the city that we live in now, St. George, I came down to Dixie, the college here, and tried to walk onto the basketball team. And it didn't work out. And so then the next year I was like, okay, now I'm going to try to walk onto the golf team. That didn't work out. And then during that time though, like I have this competitive edge in me that has to be satisfied somewhere. Like I have to do something that's like it's pushing towards a goal, trying to get better, something in some sort of form of a way physically, right? Like it's just a part of my genetics and who I am as a person. If I don't have that, like something's wrong. You know what I mean? For a long time, I was able to fulfill that through sports. And then my senior year of high school, right after we finished the basketball season, that was the one year I skipped, or my senior year, I think I skipped baseball because I was going to try to get ready for to try out for basketball at the college that I was going to. But after basketball ended and I didn't have anything competitive right after, I was like, okay, I've got to have something, right? Like I can't just go out and live my life now and not have some sort of competitive something. And so we always lifted weights through high school, but for some reason, right. And I never took it that seriously, right? I never was like, I go to weights and do some curls or some bench press to see who could bench more out of all of our buddies, but never anything that serious. But then right after basketball ended and I didn't have a sport anymore, and I was just going to try to start getting ready for to try out for the basketball team as I got to college and walk on. For some reason, like it clicked in my head, like you need to start working out. And I grew up around my mom, who was always heavily into fitness. Like I would grow up in the gym. She taught a bunch of group classes. I would go and just like sit there all night while she was doing all of like her aerobics classes with her in the class, in her gym and everything like that. And so something I was always around, and she was always eating healthy and whatnot too. And so like something that I just kind of saw a lot of. And then like I said, something just switched after that basketball season ended, to where I remember going asking the football coach, like, hey, can I come in and use the gym after school? And he looked at me like, what the hell? You didn't give a shit about lifting like during the season or all the way through high school. Why the hell do you want to start lifting now? I was like, and that was his response. I was like, I don't know. Like, I just want to start lifting. I want to make sure that I'm taking care of my body, because I've always had this weird fear of like getting overweight. Like, I remember being 18 years old and thinking like, man, when I'm 30, which I'm going to be this next year, like, I wonder what I'm going to look like. I need to make sure that I don't allow myself like to get out of control and get fat, and not make sure that I'm taking care of my body composition. Right. Like, it was a weird thought that I would always have for some reason. And so like, it almost gave me this weird insecurity that you have to start lifting and you have to start taking care of yourself. And so that's where it started.
That's super funny because when I quit college, I quit college baseball after 2 years, and
Where'd you go?
Washington State.
Oh, cool. You played baseball for Washington State?
Yeah, I was a catcher.
Oh, good
And
for you, man. That's
funny
awesome.
enough, we were in the gym, and one of the members, I'm like doing semis, and one of the members at the gym, because I was like, "Hey, Paul, is this you?" And he pulls up like a YouTube video of me in a mullet, and I was like, "Where did you find this?"
That's cool.
He's a big baseball fan. Anyway, um, my dad for 26 years worked at Pepsi. So growing up, it was mug root beer, Sierra
Oh yeah.
Mist, Mountain Dew, come home, bring some Pizza Hut. And it's just like you wake up, you have some cake, some pizza, like a soda, and then you're off. Like you would bring
Yeah.
Mountain Dews and Ding Dongs to my post basketball games as like post game snacks. The parents were pissed, but that's just like where we lived, or not where we lived, but like how we ate. And I drank pop, and then as soon as I quit, just something flipped in my switch. I'm like, I need to stop drinking pop because I can't get fat. I can't be the one who like quits
Yeah.
baseball and then lets myself go. And then I just started running like 8 miles a day, and that was always for the same thing for me. Where I just turned 30, and I would say now I'm in by far the best shape I've ever been.
Yeah.
Last year I ran a marathon in under 3 hours. Morgan with Jeremiah, I'm like as strong as I've ever been. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
like I'm gonna hopefully be the Rock in 20 years and
Yeah.
still just like going. But it's this like, I don't know if it's an athlete thing or just being like, all right, like I can't lose this competitive edge. And it's almost like this like fear that's constantly chasing you. It's like, all right, gotta get after it, gotta get after it. And obviously it's for positive reasons. But anyway, that just brought me back to what you said when you're like you're going to the gym after high school and the coach is, where's this been for the last 4 years, dude?
Yeah. Exactly. Like, I almost do it. I always talk about like the idea of scarcity versus abundance, right? A lot of entrepreneurs talk about that and the importance of living in abundance. Like with my body in that aspect, like I've always lived sort of out of scarcity. Like, I can't allow this to happen. So I'm going to do everything in my power to not let it happen. It doesn't mean that I'm always perfect with my training and nutrition, right? I get off track time and time again, all the time. I get off track, but like at the end of the day, again, this is something I talk with about clients a lot, is you're not expected to be perfect all the time. But if you want to get to like the people that are most successful, the people that you look up to with the best body compositions, the fitness influencers, whoever you want it to be, they're not perfect with their training and their nutrition. I'm not perfect with my training and nutrition, but what I am and what you have to be and accept is that you have to be persistent. And if you can just always focus on that and not be too hard on yourself for the times that you mess up, and just always look forward to that next choice that you can make to get back on track, any of those mess ups you have are never going to be that much of a setback, as long as you can continue, like I said, to put more good days in front of the bad ones. You're going to be in a perfectly fine situation. That's something that I wish I would have known when I was younger, right?
Yeah.
Because I put so much pressure on myself to be perfect for a long time, which in some ways probably harmed my relationship with nutrition for a long time, harmed my relationship with training, like training 6 or 7 days a week, thinking I had to eat in a calorie deficit for 2 years straight. Right. And creating a bad relationship there, which led to an extreme, which then would lead to the opposite extreme of binging and things like that. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that dichotomy is super interesting because the right scarcity abundance, to a degree, there is scarcity in how long your body has certain hormonal profiles or a faster metabolism, or you can create. I always tell people like you can create the habit of working out, taking care of your training and nutrition, but if you try and start that after you've already had kids, like that's going to be much harder. And
Mm-hmm.
so there is like a very limited amount of years to where you can build and then have a foundation that's going for much longer, if that makes sense. And like even business, like scarcity in customers versus abundance of customers. If you take, I've been listening to Andy Frisell a lot, and he talks about
So
like
have I.
if you look at every single customer as like this is the most important
Mhm.
customer, that's in a way that's almost like a scarcity mindset to like this is the most important person in the world. And like that almost has a lot of benefit to it as well. So it's like it's always this like dichotomy and swinging back and forth. Like I'm always to your point, I'm always telling people, right, you got time. Like look at J Lo, she's 50. Look at The Rock, he's 50. Like you got so much time. Why are you trying to get fit for 28, 38? Like you got time. But at the same time, like we are limited in the amount of time on this earth. So get after it.
Yeah. And like one thing to your point there that I feel just grateful for, maybe lucky, is for some reason I had that switch turn at like 18 years old. And so I didn't have a whole lot of ingrained habits yet. You know what I mean? I feel like this isn't against or saying that the older that you get that you can't do it. Sometimes like it will be harder, not because you're older and that your body won't change, but because you've ingrained these habits for such a long period of time that we have to pull all of those back first, and breaking those is going to be the hard part. It's not that your body can't lose fat or that you can't build muscle or that it's going to go at a snail's pace. It's that we have to literally take these old habits out and ingrain these new habits in, and
Yeah.
that's what's going to take the most time.
It's neural pathways that have been grooved for decades that you now have
Exactly.
to say, like, all right, we're consciously going to take a goat path instead of the freeway that we've been hammering for the last 20 years, which is hard. which
Exactly.
which I think is a cool segue to get to something that you've been talking about recently, and I love talk about motivation. Obviously, you can't rely on motivation from a fitness standpoint, but just how it's like we're not motivated to go to work. I'm not motivated to pay my taxes, but better damn be sure I'm going to pay my
Yeah, I'm
taxes.
paying my taxes today. I'm not motivated for that at all. But no, that was actually I posted that video on TikTok, and it was just kind of like out of the blue. I don't know where I even came up with the analogy, but it just came really out of nowhere because I was trying to think about motivation and how I could spin it. And that was the one way that just hit home for me and ended up hitting home for a lot of other people too, is the idea of thinking about, okay, all of the responsibilities that you have in your life. If you're a parent, taking care of your kids, if you're in a relationship, making sure that you're prioritizing your significant other, if you have a job and you have to go to work every single day, you do those things every single day because they're your responsibility. You're not motivated to do them every single day. But if it's your responsibility, you continue to show up for them because your life depends on them at the end of the day, right? But when it comes to our fitness or our nutrition, we choose to look at that as almost like an option and not a responsibility, but something that we use motivation as a crutch for. And you're going at that from the wrong angle. You have to start to frame your training, your nutrition, just as you would frame your relationship with your significant other. Your significant other, you would just frame it the same way that you would frame it with your job or being a parent. Just your training and your nutrition, your health is another one of those responsibilities in your life. And until you frame it that way for yourself and don't allow it to be an option, but rather force it to be a responsibility in your life, you're going to continue down that yo-yo of being motivated and then not motivated. Again, if you accept before you begin that motivation is going to come and it's going to go, then you're going to be in a position to where you can face the times when you're not motivated, right? Because just like I said, you're not motivated to go to work every single day. When you start a brand new job and it's brand new to you, you're probably motivated to go those first few days. You're like, yeah, this is something new. This is exciting. Same thing when you get into a relationship. For the first while, you're super motivated. It's the lust phase, right? Like you're loving it. You're excited about it. With training nutrition, when you first get the gym membership or you first start with a coach, whatever it may be, you're excited. Like this is something new. But over time, it becomes a bit monotonous, and then the motivation leaves. But the job, the relationship, the father, if you're a decent human being or a responsible human being, you keep those things in place regardless. But when it comes to your training and nutrition, you allow it to just to slip off the back end, right? And it all comes down, in my opinion, to how you frame that for yourself. Is this a pillar to my life, or is this just something that I'm trying to do? And until you start to frame it as a pillar and something that you do and who you are, rather than something you're trying to do, you're always going to rely on those your emotions, right? And if you're always relying on your emotions to create a result, at the end of the day, we know that your emotions aren't something that you can control. What you can control is the response or actions you take from the emotions that are put on you. And so when you can start to frame it that way for yourself, it's no longer something that gets in your way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's something that you want or needs to be true about yourself at like the core, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think kind of related to this is people think like, oh, once I hit this, $100,000 or abs or this weight or that weight, then like I'll be like I'm motivated for that. And it's like that's not a motivator either. And when you get to those, motivation's not all this. Like when you really hit me when you were talking about with a job where maybe you do get that job and it's that finally that big job that you want. It's that title that you've always wanted. It's that paycheck you've always wanted. And it's like eventually that's going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
That motivation, even if you hit all the boxes that you wanted, is going to dip, and then you need something else. And for me, it's like, all right, what is true about me and my identity? And like my identity is that I just don't stop. I'm like those little clowns that you could beat up as a kid that would like fall over and then just kept getting back up. It's like, man, this thing is relentless.
I love that. That's how I identify myself as well. Like that's been my biggest crutch that I've always leaned on and tried to make sure I frame myself as to myself, basically, as like I may not be the best in the world. I may not do things perfectly. I may mess up, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be persistent regardless. Like the one thing that I'll never do is quit. And if you can go at your life from that aspect, your training, your nutrition, your career, whatever it may be, you're always going to put yourself in a position eventually to be successful. And this is when you stop finally relying on your emotions or allowing your emotions to dictate your actions, right? And when you can get to that point to realize that, yeah, a lot of these things are going to suck. It's going to be shitty. The journey's not going to be fun. But like, if I'm just in a position to where I identify with not quitting on what I'm doing, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be self-aware to realize when you're doing something that's just not working to make an adjustment, obviously, but realizing that I'm going to be relentless and I'm just going to be persistent. And when you frame it to that, when you frame it that way for yourself, it's only a matter of time until you start achieving the things that you set out to achieve. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's a good place to kind of end it on, at least the fitness and mindset side. Just a few questions that are a little bit more personality, getting to know you
Sure.
as we wrap this up. So obviously we've been locked up for a while. I love traveling. Hopefully we get to travel abroad or whatever soon. What's the first place that you would go to if things opened up now and it's like boom, blank check? Like where are you going in the world?
Yeah, we've been having this conversation a lot at home. So through quarantine and whatnot, we did my grandparents actually live in Mexico. So we went down there in November, right before we made our move here. So I've been able to travel just a little bit throughout all of this, but not very much. But the one place that we really want to go that was on the plan of where we were headed before all of this stuff happened was Europe. My wife wants to do a trip to to the UK region first, and then do like an Italy trip, and then we're going to do like a Sweden and a Norway trip and like a Switzerland trip, but block them all out to like this different areas of Europe, right? And so I believe the first one that we're going to do is the UK trip. That just something where we've always wanted to go. Tons of history over there, obviously, and whatnot, and a place that we haven't been able to go yet. So that's probably going to be the first one, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's one of the areas I'm looking to go to too. When you do decide, like kind of that Sweden, Scandinavia area, I dated someone for 5 years from there. And so
Really?
I've been to Sweden, I think 4 times, and we'd always fly into Copenhagen.
Oh
And
yeah.
so there's some really cool, really cool spots there to check out.
I'll have to
So
pick your brain when we decide on that one. Then I'll reach out to you and get some insights. That sounds cool.
yeah, you quickly realize how you think you're a good looking person, and then you get there and you're like, wow, like I'm not as tall
Really?
and long and beautiful as like you'll see like a random kid that dresses better than you. He's like 4 years old, and then you're like, how are you 65 and looking like you just ran a ultra marathon
Oh,
and
that's
still like
cool.
dress the nines? But okay, cool. So another question. Obviously, we haven't been to a lot of concerts. Concert opens up tomorrow. It's like the number one artist or band that you want to see. Who are you going to?
Oh, that is a good question. That's a really good question. Honestly, I'm kind of a softie. So I've got a lot of different types of genres that I like. I like country. I like rap. At the end of the day, like if I could go see anybody at this time, I would get all of my old friends back together that we used to hang out with, like right out of high school or even in high school, and go see Wiz Khalifa.
That'd be sick.
That was that was the dude back in the day for us. We went to a Wiz concert, Kid Cudi, Mac Miller, all those guys back in the day. Like that was when we were coming up in high school, and right out of high school, we're like the big dudes in like the rap scene. But then like I'm a softie for country
Yeah.
and whatnot too.
Where did you go see him?
In Salt Lake, so it's
Okay.
called the Saltaire, just outside of like right in between Salt Lake and another town called Tooele. It's actually right on like the Great Salt Lake, right on the actual lake is where like the big facility was at that we went to. Super fun.
Got it. So I'm in Seattle, and sometimes those those tours don't make it up to the Pacific Northwest, and I'm always just like, oh man, and I get it, like it's just a long way to drive,
Yeah.
and so I was like,
Yeah.
where are you going to see Wiz Khalifa in Preston, Idaho? So I knew there was
No, not
somewhere
in
here.
Preston. Yeah. So no.
So we got
Preston is
Preston on the
like
tour.
Preston's a little ways away. There's only like 5,000 of us there.
Yeah.
But no, Salt Lake is roughly 2 hours south of Preston. And now I live actually an additional like 3 to 4 hours south of Salt Lake down in the southern Utah area. But yeah, Salt Lake area is where we would go.
Cool. Last question. If you could interview anyone on your podcast, dead or alive, fictional, non-fictional, so a real person, who would it be?
Oh, that's a good question too. Honestly, it's a really good question. I would love to have a one-on-one conversation with Joe Rogan. And that's kind of cliche probably to say too, but the reason being is I love the way that he's just able to communicate with anybody and make anybody feel comfortable in his setting, right? Like that's a big skill for just communication in terms of podcasting or coaching or whatever it may be, just being a good human being that people are receptive to, if that makes sense. So I'd love just to be able to sit and have a conversation with him. The conversation itself would be great, but just to see like how he conducts the conversation, to be able to pick up on the little things that he's able to do that allows 99% of the people that he talks with just to like almost feel like they're at home or talking with somebody that they've known for years on end, if that makes sense. And so that's the biggest reason that I enjoy listening to him, is to pick up on those little cues that he has in that sense. So I'd love just to be able to have a one-to-one conversation with him. I think that'd be super cool.
Yeah, there's so many little nuanced things that he does where he'll just pick into a question a little bit deeper with like 2 words and ask it in a way that all of a sudden this person just explodes with like a ton of detail and color and story. And he's like, interesting. And
that's hard too.
Yeah, it's not something you just, I mean, maybe people grow up and have that, but yeah, I mean, and then obviously with all the UFC stuff and then the comedy stuff, like the guy just like very broad in his skill sets.
Yeah. Like I said, that's a skill. And like when you watch other YouTube videos that will break down what he's doing in conversation, like they're not focused on the conversation, but they're focused on how he's orchestrating it. You can kind of see what he's doing it and the art to it. Just super intriguing to me. So yeah.
Definitely. Cool. Well, Chaz, thank you so much for the time, man. It's been super fun getting to know you. Look forward to getting to know you more. And I think a lot of really good nuggets for people listening to this podcast. First and foremost being TikTok. Got to get on it.
100%. If there's coaches out there, I would definitely do it. But I appreciate you too, Paul. Thank you so much for having me come on, man. We'll do the same thing over on mine here shortly too.
Cool. Sounds good, brother. All right. Before I let you guys go, just want to say thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Help me grow the podcast. We're almost at 100 episodes, and so this is a real thing. Episode a week, 2 years running. I think we'll hit 2 years in June, and so it's just been a really fun ride. And every time I get feedback, whether it's through social media, through the ratings, reviews, it's all helpful in helping me make a better show for you. And if you're like, man, this is my vibe, definitely subscribe to the podcast as well, and tag Chaz and I and let us know that you're listening so that we can interact and engage with you. Other than that, have an awesome week. We'll catch you guys next time on the Mindful Muscle Podcast.